Karen Wharton, it is so good to see you. On June 12th, it will be the first day of early voting, and we really got to get the word out about ranked choice voting. And I want you to start right off by telling everybody what ranked choice voting is.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Kevin. Good to see you again. And thank you for your service and for highlighting and amplifying ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting is exactly what it sounds like, where you, the voter, you get to choose your top 5 candidates in municipal races, primary and special elections, and rank them in order of your preference. So your first choice is the person you really want to have win. This is the person who you think will do the most for you, your family, and your community. This is the person, like I said, you want to have win. Your second choice then is a backup to your first. So if your first has to leave the race for whatever reason tomorrow, you will still want to vote this year in the June primaries, and then your second will be elevated and become your preferred candidate. In New York, we give you a third, fourth, and fifth choice. Those 3 choices, additional choices, they're all backups to your top ranking, your more preferred candidates. So it's essentially what it says it is. You get to choose and rank your candidates.
Particularly now with the city, with budget crunches and stuff like that, I think ranked choice voting is advantageous in terms of being cost effective. And secondly, we know that people don't want to have a runoff, because that means they're going to have to come out and vote a second time. Now, I was wondering, do you subscribe to the notion that ranked choice voting, I think going forward, will be a lot less contentious?
Well, I think so, but it's up to the candidates. The studies show that in races, elections that are ranked choice voting elections, the candidates tend to be a little bit more congenial.
Yeah.
And they begin to think not so much in terms of my opponent, right? But my friend over here, we do have a difference in opinion. Because in order to get to 50% plus 1, because that's a big change now,
right.
You have to win. In order to win, you need to get a majority of the votes, not a plurality,
that's
majority.
Right.
And so in order to get that, you need to build a coalition.
Right.
And you need to move beyond your base, right, of just, let's say, 40%. How do you get to 50% plus 1? And you get by appealing to the other candidates, to their supporters, for second, third, fourth, and fifth choices. And that is how winning candidates actually get to the majority.
So talk a little bit about how we got to ranked choice voting, because we voted in an election. I think it was a line item in one of the elections that had whether or not people wanted ranked choice voting or not. And I think 70% of the people who voted in that particular election said that they wanted ranked choice voting. So ranked choice voting didn't just fall out the sky.
Absolutely not. And it's not new to us in New York. It's not a new system. Ranked choice voting is used in several communities across the United States. So let's start from there.
Right.
It's used in the state of Maine. It's used in the Midwest, in Minneapolis and Paul. It's used in the Southwest in Santa Fe, New Mexico. It's used in the West Coast in the Bay Area.
Right.
It's used internationally. And we here in New York, we actually use ranked choice voting. Remember the old community school board?
That's right.
So they use it. So what is new is that we're using it citywide for municipal races, for mayor, controller, public advocate, borough president, and city council.
Right.
So it's not new.
So I wanted to ask you about people's conception as to whether or not they're going to vote in all 5 slots. My contention is that if you just vote for your candidate, that'll put you out of the running in the other part of the process when it goes into the other rounds. If you just vote for your candidate, you're out of the election in the second round. But if you select 4 or 5 people that'll keep your ballot in the game throughout the entire process, up until the point where someone gets the 50% plus 1. And I was just wondering, what were your thoughts about that?
So ranked choice voting is about giving voters choice, right? And giving them more power. So one way you have more choice is by being able to say, this is my preferred candidate. This is the candidate that I want. But if I can't have my favorite candidate, then maybe I can get my second, my third, my fourth. Now, to your question, what if someone does not choose the rankings? Their vote is still valid. Your vote is still valid if you just choose one candidate, 2, 3, 4, or 5. However, the power in a ranked choice voting ballot lies in the rankings. And so, whereas in the old system, when you voted, if you voted for candidate X, and he or she or they lost, your voice is silenced. You didn't have a say in who else was considered. On the ranked choice, if you use your rankings, you now have a voice. You have an additional say. You get to say, choose my second, or look at my second. Maybe everyone will agree with me in the second, third, fourth.
Right.
If you don't use your rankings, then if your favorite candidate doesn't win, your voice, your ability to your say-so is shut down.
It's shut down.
So it's more, you have more of an influence. It's like going to the ice cream parlor, and you walk in and you ask for your favorite flavor, pistachio.
Right.
If there is no pistachio, if the person behind the counter says, sorry, no pistachio, you don't get to say, okay, well, do you have chunky monkey?
Right.
No, you don't have. But if you, so this is again giving you more choices.
Exactly.
Giving you a say-so.
You know, in my experience in voting in primaries, in our minds, we rank these candidates anyway, because more often than not, people who are running in our communities, likely we know these people anyway. So it's going to be, the person that we really like, the person that we're okay with, and the person that, we can live with. So we rank in our minds anyway. And secondly, ranked choice voting is a runoff in and of itself, because it's an automatic runoff. And I just wanted you to speak a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So to your point about rankings, we rank every day. I gave you the example.
Yes.
Of the ice cream. We rank when we go to the restaurant. You ask for the special of the day. They don't have it, then you keep going down.
Right.
We rank when we go shopping. You want a shirt in blue, they don't have it in blue, you choose something else.
Exactly.
So we do this every day. And we also do it with candidates. And so the way we do with candidates oftentimes is we evaluate the candidates. We have our issues. And the candidate whose values, who speak most closest to those issues,
right,
that's our preferred candidate. And then we have a second one. Well, we like this one too. So to your point, we do evaluate and rank these candidates often. It's just one of the old system. You can only select one.
Right.
Now we're able to select both.
So now I want to get into how advantageous ranked choice voting is to the candidate, and also ways of creating strategies for the candidate. Like for instance, you would want all of your opponent's supporters to choose you second. And I want you to talk a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm. Well, so again, in order to win, we need a majority, right?
Exactly.
If your base is 80% of the community, we don't have a problem.
That's right.
We'll have a majority. But if it is not, how do you get to a majority?
That's right.
And how you get to a majority is by speaking to people outside of your base. So speaking to some other communities, or some other groups within your community might be looking to someone else, and you say, hey, as a candidate, you get to you try to find what is the commonality between yourself and that candidate. And then you say to their people, listen, I know that you like candidate Y because candidate Y is strong in civil rights.
Right.
I agree with candidate Y on the issue of civil rights or voting rights, and here is where we have some agreement with.
Right.
So, when you go to vote, I know you want candidate Y. Candidate Y is your first choice, makes me your second.
Exactly.
And you do this to various communities, and that is essentially how you get to a majority.
Yeah. So now, what do you think the future of ranked choice voting is in New York? Do you think it's here to stay?
Well, New Yorkers get to decide that.
Yeah.
New Yorkers decided that they wanted this, right? It didn't just fall out of the
That's right. That's
and
right.
so, you know, New Yorkers will determine. They've said that they want it. And we've had 4 elections so far, 4 special elections in the city, and voters were quite happy with it.
Yeah.
Voters, 95% of the voters said in the ballots was fairly easy to complete. So I think this is here to stay.
You know, in my opinion, I think long gone is the notion that we will know who wins an election the very next day. I think, you know, that instant gratification, I think ranked choice voting spoils that a little bit in the sense that it takes time to count absentee ballots, it takes time to count ballots, mail-in ballots, and it's also going to take some time to count ranked choice ballots. So it may take a week, it may take 2 weeks before we know who the winners are, and I think that's something that we're going to have to get used to because, in my opinion, long gone is the notion that we'll know who's going to win the very next day. It's possible. It's possible, but I think in the main, I think it's we won't see that happen again. And I just wondered what your thoughts were about that.
You wouldn't see the likelihood, well, or it could happen again if there's a blowout.
Right.
You may find out the night before. But it's not ranked choice voting that is causing the delay. It is not ranked choice voting because the counting is computerized.
Right.
So it's whether it's a second or 30 seconds or 3 minutes, it's for all intents and purposes instantaneous, the calculation.
Right.
What will cause the delay is the same thing that caused the delay in Georgia in the presidential election.
Exactly.
And that is, since COVID, we've been rightfully taking advantage of absentee ballots.
Absentee ballots, or mail-in ballots, if you will.
Yeah, absentee/mail-in ballots, right? And so you'll recall that in Georgia, the night of the election, the night of the presidential election,
Correct.
President Trump thought he was the winner because he was ahead in terms of in-person votes. But then once they started to count the absentee votes, and remember, states have different rules that govern how absentee ballots are handled. In New York, the rule is that it takes 7 days before they can begin to count the absentee ballots. Why 7 days? Because remember, you can mail in your absentee mail-in ballot up to, you have until the night of the election to do that. Right? So as long as it's time stamped, it's valid. And then the Board of Election gives the post office 7 days to have it delivered. Okay. And so this is so that all of our votes can be counted.
Right.
So expect some delay because the laws are such that in order to ensure that every vote is counted, right? There is some time, like a lag between election day and when absentee votes can be counted, a lag between when election day and military votes can be counted.
Right.
So we're thinking that it'll be about 3 weeks, right? And another thing to add to that, so many absentee ballots. The law was changed to give voters who use mail-in ballots,
Right.
if there's an error on their envelope, to cure that vote, to cure it. So this way your ballot is not thrown out because the signature
Right.
doesn't match.
Some technicality.
Yeah, nothing to do with your actual vote.
Exactly.
Right? So we here in New York, because we're expanding our voting rights, right? Unlike some other places. So when your mail-in ballot arrives at the Board of Election, if there's an issue, they're supposed to call you or text you or write you, however it is, and give you a finite number of days to come in and fix that.
Right.
So that too
That
adds
takes a
to
little
it.
time.
So it's not the RCB, right? But it's basically we want to have all the votes counted. If you take the time to go to the polls or to fill out your absentee ballot and send it in, it ought to be counted.
Yes.
And so this is what part of that process is what's adding to the time.
But Karen, thank you so very much for your time. You were very informative, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen on June 22nd, because it's going to change the face of our city. We're going to have a new mayor. We're going to have all new borough presidents. Our city council will change. I think it's close to 70% will be new members. So our city is going to change exponentially for years to come. And I'm so excited that we had a chance to have this conversation. And I can't wait for us to continue this talk. We could talk about what's going to happen in the post-election, and hopefully we'll get together and talk about the results of this past election, of this upcoming election,
Yes.
in the hopes that we'll get together and discuss what happened on election day.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and thank you so much.